Yeah, I'm from Midlothian Health and Social Care Partnership. And in terms of who we are, I'll just go on to the next slide. If you can jump forward. Yep, so just a quick recap about some of the services here that we plan and direct and the budgets that we have available to us. And if you can jump onto the next slide. This was just to point out where we are in Scotland and to highlight that we are the smallest local authority area in Scotland, which brings challenges but also opportunities for us in terms of the way we work and how we take on board opportunities to do integration in Midlothian. Next slide, please. In terms of what we're trying to achieve, I just wanted to highlight that working with people as partners is a big part of our aims and our focus, and that was something that helped us in deciding to focus on public engagement as one of the key themes that we would take forward. Next slide, please. So a quick recap in terms of our process. We completed the maturity self-assessment and identified the 3 areas for improvement. These weren't our weakest areas, but were areas where we felt that we could really make a difference and that would benefit from having a bit of focus in the partnership. As Sophie covered in her workshop, we developed the draft logic models and refined these with Optimidas. We had stakeholder workshops to look at what we'd got right and what else we needed to consider. And then we worked again with Optimidas to update and refine our logic models and to develop our improvement plan. Optimidas were obviously really helpful in helping us to think through what we were aiming to achieve and to help us identify some of the gaps in terms of what we were doing. If you can go to the next slide, please. So in terms of the logic models that we developed or focused on in Midlothian, we had 3 separate ones, as I've mentioned. Public engagement, which was looking at organisation-wide structures, population management, and digital infrastructure. So today I'm going to focus on the public engagement part of the work and give a recap on that. If you can go on to the next slide, please. So the objectives in terms of the public engagement part of the work were that we would develop a really systematic approach to using what people tell us across the partnership on an ongoing basis and report how what people tell us has actually led to us changing our actions and plans or to influencing our actions and plans. Next slide, please. So some of the key activities that we identified that we would deliver as part of this were around developing methods to analyse the feedback and to really identify trends. So if we were getting feedback from different areas, how we would pull this together to pull out some of the key themes and trends. Looking at developing a communication and engagement plan, and also looking at our resources as well, how much time and people were we putting into this area of work. If you can go on to the next slide, please. So we identified a range of short, medium and long-term outcomes. And part of the work with Optimidas was around refining these and understanding, as Sophie mentioned, whether or not the activities would actually lead us to these outcomes. We had a really long list of things that we thought we would achieve through the programme. So these included around changing to services, around gaps in services and identifying them, and in making sure that our plans and our services were developed based on the feedback that was given to us. Next slide, thank you. So in terms of our reflections on the process, we did identify some challenges that we faced in developing the logic models. So it was really thinking about if that's where we want to go, if these are our outcomes, are these the key activities that will actually deliver on those? Knowing what some of our assumptions were and what our barriers were. And obviously, I'm sure it affected the majority of people involved in this programme, but COVID restrictions and the impact of the pandemic on our work, particularly around public engagement, was quite challenging. And you can see there a quote from one of the stakeholders that we worked with, who was highlighting that although the structure was great, it was important that it shouldn't be so strict that it was an obstacle to us actually delivering on the engagement work. Next slide, please. So we also held a workshop with a wide range of stakeholders. So these included people from within the partnership, also people who are using our services or representing them, and also people who are carers or family members, and local charities. And this was a really important part of the process. It helped to give us different perspectives on how people viewed this area of work and what our priorities were. It also gave us some validation of the areas that we had chosen to focus on, that the people felt were areas that we could work on, that were suitable to be a focus of this work. And it also helped to bring momentum to the work as well. And as you can see there, we also got some really useful feedback about when we need to do the work and about the value of bringing in engagement at an earlier stage in the process. Next slide, please. So we held our engagement workshop on the 14th of September. And these were just some of the kind of key things that came back. So one of them was just about, it was a really good reminder to us that the engagement should be engaging and fun, that it shouldn't be a really difficult piece of work or viewed as something that was demanding, that it should be a positive thing for us as a partnership to be doing and should be viewed in that way, which we found a really useful way to reframe our thinking about this area of work. If you can jump onto the next slide, please. So we developed our logic model based on the work and the workshops, and refined this again. As you can see, I've just put a bit of a shot from the top of the screen model where we really kind of had a look again about what we were doing and how that would lead us to the key outcomes. Final slide, please. So in terms of our next steps and how we're using this work, so this has been used to inform the development of our new strategic plan, and we also have used it to inform the development of an engagement plan that sits alongside this work. And we are looking at our models for reviewing how we report on this area of work. The logic model is also being used to support the development and delivery of a neurological conditions project, which has a really key focus on engagement and showing how we've used engagement to develop the project. So the logic model will really help to guide us in this new piece of work which we're delivering over this year. That's everything.